Hey guys, today we're talking about Weapons, the brand new horror film directed by Zach Kreger, the mind behind Barbarian. The movie stars Josh Brolin, Julia Garner, and Alden Ehrenreich, and it's already creating a lot of discussion. So, the film begins with a really unsettling mystery. 17 kids from the same classroom leave their homes at exactly 2:17 a.m., all running down the street in the same way. By the next morning, they've completely disappeared. Naturally, suspicion falls on their teacher.
There's something very, very wrong going on.
Now, what makes Weapons stand out is the way the story is told. Instead of a linear plot, the movie is divided into 5 different perspectives. Each section focuses on a new character, showing us how they deal with the incident and how their personal story connects to the bigger mystery. And what's really impressive is how each perspective reshapes your understanding of the events. Something that looks confusing or questionable in one storyline suddenly makes sense once you see it through someone else's eyes. It's a narrative style that feels deliberate, well thought out, and honestly more engaging than the average horror movie that just wants to scare you with cheap tricks. Speaking of scares, this isn't your typical jump scare fest. Yes, there are a few moments that can get under your skin, but the movie doesn't rely on shock value. Instead, it builds tension and atmosphere. Personally, I did jump a couple of times, but I'd say fear isn't the main weapon here. It's more about suspense and psychological unease. That said, the pacing in the first hour might feel a little slow. There's a heavy sense of mystery, and while that works in building tension, it can sometimes feel dragged out, especially because every time one character's story starts pulling you in, the movie shifts gears and brings you back down with a new perspective. It's a double-edged sword. On one hand, it keeps the film layered, but on the other, it risks losing momentum. Performance-wise, the acting is solid across the board. No one really delivers an Oscar-worthy performance, but at the same time, no one feels out of place either. The cast does a good job of making you believe in the small-town setting and the paranoia that spreads after the kids disappear. The real highlight for me is the direction. Zach Kreger brings a very unique eye to this project. The cinematography is sharp, the camera angles feel intentional, and the visuals are strong enough to keep you invested even when the pacing slows down. There are even a few bits of humor sprinkled in, which might feel slightly out of place depending on your taste, but they didn't completely break the tension for me. So, before we jump into spoilers, here's my quick rating. Weapons is a very interesting horror film. It does some things differently, especially in terms of structure and direction, but it also falls into a few familiar traps. Overall, I'd give it a 7 out of 10. Definitely worth checking out if you're into unconventional horror. Okay, let's get into it. One of my biggest issues with the film is actually the final act. When we get to the storyline of Gladys and the boy Alex, supposedly connected through family, the film finally gives us the explanation behind all the strange events. We learn that Gladys had essentially put Alex's parents to sleep, and this is where the supernatural element comes in: witchcraft. Now, witchcraft in horror isn't necessarily bad, but here it feels overused and, honestly, a bit convenient. The real problem is how the film handles its ending. About 30 minutes before the credits roll, the movie pretty much reveals everything: the source of evil, the reasoning, and the connections. That leaves the last act feeling empty, because instead of building to a shocking revelation or a satisfying twist, we're just watching Gladys act without any real justification. Why is she doing this? What exactly drives her? The film never gives us a clear answer. So by the end, instead of walking away with a chilling sense of horror, you're left with questions that don't feel intentionally mysterious. they just feel unanswered. To wrap things up, Weapons is a unique entry in modern horror. It's atmospheric, creative in its storytelling, and directed with real skill. But it also struggles with pacing in the first half and leaves you a little unsatisfied in the finale. Still, if you're looking for something different from the usual horror formula, it's definitely worth your time. My final verdict, 7 out of 10. Thanks so much for watching this video. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.